Welcome to Love and Abuse, the show about helping you identify poisonous communication and toxic behavior. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. That's why it's important that you learn to pinpoint manipulative and controlling behavior so that you keep your power and your sanity. I'm your host, Paul Coliani. Today I want to talk about keeping that sanity, keeping your power. There's a way that we behave in relationships that cause reactions from other people. These reactions are either favorable or not. And these reactions have to do with the old patterns that have developed in our relationship over the months or years. And how we behave and how we respond typically will indicate how they behave and how they respond. And what's good to notice is when our behavior incites a certain response from the other person. Now, in some emotionally abusive relationships, no matter what behavior you do will incite something unfavorable from the other person. And that unfavorable response could be any number of things in order to get what that person wants, to control you, to have power over you, or just to have a situation work out in the way they want, in a favorable way for them, so that they benefit. But even in healthy relationships, where you have two people that are working together and going toward similar goals, or at least walking in the same direction, holding hands, you have times where one response will elicit an unfavorable response from the other person, which is why it's important to know that, hey, when I respond like this, how does that person respond? How does that person act? What do they say? How do I feel when they do or say what they do or say? Because that's our qualifier. That's how we gauge things, is that we reach inside ourselves and understand how we feel about an interaction that we have with our partners, with our family, with friends, coworkers. And how did that make us feel? And do we want to feel that way again? When you have favorable communication, you probably feel good. And you like that feeling. And you want to feel that again, which is why you would probably come back for more, whether that day or another day, and you just want to communicate and hang out or be with that person more and more. But then you have unfavorable communication. Unfavorable communication makes you feel bad. You don't want to have that type of conversation again, or you just don't want to feel this way, and you don't even know how it ended up here. You don't know how the conversation twisted and turned to end up making you feel bad, or even them feel bad. How did it get there? And so this is where we have to start being very conscious of our behavior and our verbal language and our body language. This is where we have to start being very conscious of how we come across. And that's hard to do because you're in it. Sometimes you're emotionally triggered and you're in it. And you just go on autopilot, and then suddenly you're going down this spiral that is unending, and you hope that it will come out favorable, but it often doesn't. When it doesn't feel very good. So we start off with the gauge. We start off with, hey, did this interaction make me feel good or bad? Or indifferent? I mean, indifferent is even favorable, typically over bad. So accessing how you feel will be your step one gauge to understand how you do or don't want to feel next time. And this is the first interruption of an unconscious process that can take place, usually during a conversation. Because you know how it is. When you're with your best friend, you can lose yourself in the moment and just keep talking and talking, and you don't have to think before you speak. It just streams out. It just flows. This is a very unconscious process. You can just talk and it flows. So if someone asked you to stop and analyze everything that you said, you'd probably have a hard time getting back into that flow. And this is the same thing with conversations that make you feel bad. You can be on autopilot and feel bad at the end of a conversation and have it be very unconscious the whole time and miss so many opportunities to stop and analyze what's going on. Now, what can happen is that you stop in your mind and they keep going. And when they keep going, they're going to be engaging your mind. They're going to be engaging your system inside you. And when that happens, you're going to have reactions and responses about it. But this is where it becomes important to be okay interrupting your own patterns. Interrupting the pattern of my normal reaction would be that. And when you can interrupt that, even though you might have feelings about it, and just stop yourself. Just stop yourself from going down that downward spiral that always leads to that negative feeling. If you can stop yourself from engaging, then you can start to understand how the pattern is forming and how it amplifies throughout the conversation. Because if you can figure that out, then you can avoid a lot of the stress that comes with some conversations with some people. Not always, because some people might have a dominating personality. Some people might want to dominate the conversation, and even when you back off, and even when you interrupt your own pattern and analyze your emotions, your feelings, and the steps that led up to how you felt that way and what was said, they might still continue talking. And when they continue talking, they are now interrupting your interruption. They are now interrupting your process of self-reflection. And when you have somebody that does that, that can be very, for lack of a better term, trance-inducing. You end up listening to them and then soaking it in and having it become the content that you allow to enter your brain. And the content, if it has ill will behind it, is now shaping and influencing your patterns for the future. And this is kind of scary, if you ask me. If you are self-reflective, if you are checking in with yourself and thinking, okay, how did this happen? How is this unfolding right now where I'm feeling bad about myself? They're getting upset. What could I have done differently? What was said up to this point? And they keep talking and they keep dominating. And you're sitting in your own head trying to figure this out so that it doesn't happen again in the future. Yet they are filling your head with more influential words and trying to reshape those patterns, even though they may not be doing that consciously, or maybe they are. Either way, you're now in a different mode of reception because you're self-reflecting. You are more receptive to other influences. You're more receptive to what they say because you're being self-reflective. This is the double-edged sword. You become self-reflective while they are, for example, coming down on you, putting you down, making you feel bad, pointing out all the mistakes that you've made or everything that you've forgotten about, even though you thought your memory was impeccable. This is where the self-doubt starts to kick in. This is where you start to wonder, maybe they're right. Maybe they're right about me. Maybe that's why I keep feeling bad, because there's something wrong with me. I want you to remember who you were before this person. And if you knew this person all your life, that's tough to do. I get it. If you have a family member that has been a very negative influence in your life, then you don't know anything else. I do know, and I've said this before, when you feel bad about yourself, and they seem to appreciate that is unhealthy behavior. That is something where you look inward and ask yourself, when someone makes me feel bad about myself, is it healthy for me to be around them? Because why would somebody want me to feel bad about myself unless they didn't like me? That's an important concept to just think about. I'm not saying that you should take any action based on that. I'm not saying that you should leave someone, that you should leave the country. I'm saying that's part of the pattern that you want to interrupt in yourself. That when you have these negative thoughts that I must be less than I thought I was. I must not be as smart as I thought I was. I must not have as good a memory as I thought I did. I must not be as a loving person as I thought I was. I must be doing something wrong. When you have these thoughts, this is why it's important to understand who you were before someone else started influencing you, because that's usually closer to the truth. You know how when babies start off with every emotion, they are happy, they're sad, they're angry. I mean, maybe not angry, but they're upset. They are just experiencing the world without any filters. And then as we grow up from being an infant, we start to put on these filters to regulate our emotions around certain people. Because if we cry around certain people, they may not like it. If we laugh around certain people, they may not like it. If we say things around certain people, they may not like it. So we start patterning ourselves, and we become the culmination of our patterns. And we walk around as this culmination of our patterns based on one or two or three very few people about which we've built these filters. In other words, these filters were based on very few people in our lives. This is how we've learned to respond and behave in the world based on mom and dad or brother and sister or that one relationship we had. We build these filters, and suddenly our reality is based on these filters that are based on very few people. And we need to expand this and remove the filters one day, or at least alter them. When we feel bad, we need to alter these filters so that we aren't regulating ourselves so much. It's not just regulating our emotions, it's regulating our thoughts, it's regulating our self-expression. When you regulate yourself to the point where you behave in a certain way so you don't get a negative response, then you face the world with fear. I am going to behave a certain way so I don't get a certain response. I mean, it's not always fear, but this is something you need to assess in yourself. Am I approaching the world from a place of fear? So these are just some philosophical concepts that maybe will help you. You can put that in the back of your mind as a seed to blossom and grow and help you reflect, help you understand what might be happening in your world where someone might be a negative influence. And understanding your patterns, understanding where a interaction goes, and especially when it leads down a path that makes you feel bad. Self-reflection in the moment can help you interrupt the pattern that's going on inside of you. And if you do get someone that wants to dominate, that wants to continue trying to influence you, in any negative way, they're just talking to you and want you to continue listening to them. When you're in this state of self-reflection, when you're more receptive to both good thoughts and not so good thoughts, you might have to put your hand up and say, stop, I need to think about this for a moment. You might have to say that. You might have to walk away. And I know there are some people it's very difficult to walk away from. There are some people that don't want to stop. There are some people that want to dominate, that want to take control of the situation and put you in a space of listening only. And if you're in a space of self-reflection, I want you to remember that that is a sacred space for you. Self-reflection is sacred. When you want to reflect, you deserve that time. You deserve to say, I need to reflect on this. Give me a few minutes. You deserve that time. Just like if someone you love or anyone in your life says, oh, wait, we need to stop. I need to reflect on this. They deserve that time. They deserve that moment of reflection, or a few minutes, or a whole day, or longer. They need to reflect. That's not the silent treatment. That is reflection. The silent treatment is different. It's withholding love. It's purposefully making the other person feel bad. Self-reflection is giving yourself the love, giving yourself the energy that you need to learn to understand yourself more and to learn to recognize your own patterns. I hope this helps. Share this with others that might benefit. Love and Abuse is the official podcast of the Mean Workbook. The workbook is an assessment and healing guide for difficult relationships. If you want to pinpoint the exact behaviors causing the difficulties in your relationship, take the 200-point assessment in the workbook and learn what patterns are causing problems in your relationship. Head over to loveandabuse.com. And if you have the workbook, the private Facebook peer support group is also available. Just send an email to paul@loveandabuse.com and tell me the email that you used to purchase the workbook, and I'll send you an invite. This show exists to remind you that you are not alone and you're not going crazy. You deserve to be treated with kindness and respect. You deserve honesty and sincerity. You deserve to be treated as worthy and significant, because you are. Thank you for joining me today. We'll talk again soon.